Hello, and thank you for listening to Renewables, a podcast by BioStar, which aims to explore the current and future energy landscape in America.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Renewables. I'm your host, David Smart. I'm very excited about our episode today. And I've recorded a few in a row here, and you've probably heard me say this already if you've been tuning in, but pardon my hoarse voice. I'm finally getting over some cold that is not COVID. So anyhow, pardon the hoarse voice. And the good news is Shameek Ghosh, the co-founder and CEO of TrusTrace, is going to do most of the talking today. Very impressive guy, Shameek. It's been pleasure meeting you and getting to know you, and can't thank you enough. Thank you for coming on the show.
My pleasure, absolutely, David, and thank you for getting me to this session.
Absolutely, and coming to us from Stockholm, Sweden, so it's not every day that we have European visitors on the show, so that's awesome. We like to just open it up, though, before we get into TrusTrace and really what your platform does. Just tell our listeners and viewers a little bit about yourself and your background and how you ultimately came to found TrusTrace.
Sure. Yeah, I'm originally from India, but have been living in Sweden for the last 14 years. My background is largely in software services industry. And for the four co-founders, we used to work for a large IT services company for almost better part of almost 1.5 decades there. And we got into starting TrusTrace because we saw some terrible issues with the supply chain and the impact that these issues were having on the day-to-day life of the people back in India there. And we strongly believe that the responsible supply chain is not just for that particular industry. It impacts the communities. It impacts the global agenda issues a lot there. So I think with that in mind, we formed TrusTrace. And specifically, we saw the pollution emanating from the largest textile hub in Asia, in southern part of India, which was polluting the fresh water sources and causing a lot of issues for the local population as well as the livelihood given to farming, etc. That was sort of the tipping point for us to get started with TrusTrace.
Very interesting. And I thought this topic was so interesting when I first learned about it, because we hear a lot about the fashion and retail industry and how it isn't always real sustainable. So give us the elevator pitch. Tell us, what does TrusTrace do and why it's so important?
Yeah. So what we are doing is a fairly fundamental thing that all businesses should know, but I think it is just that it has been neglected for many years now that it is coming to the forefront. So what we do is we provide a software platform for fashion and textile industry to understand their supply chain. So we call this product traceability and supply chain transparency. In simple words, using our platform, they are able to know at a product level who are the people behind it, how it is produced, where it is produced, and effectively they get to know the complete footprint of the product, what is the environmental, social, ethical aspects of it. In this process, they just understand what the supply chain looks like, which I think is always a very, very good information for them to gather there. And this we do using certain deep technologies such as AI, blockchain, cloud technologies, and APIs. We are an enterprise scale platform, so which means that companies which have real complex supply chains, which are multi-billion dollars, have got tens and thousands of SKUs or product categories, they have a very, very high return on investment using our platform. But at the same time, the platform can be used by small and medium-sized brands also there. Typically, we are helping them to reduce the manual effort by 70 to 80% and getting high quality of data in the platform there so that they can act on it.
Very interesting. So talk about how they generate a return on their investment.
Yeah. So two main drivers in the world that we are living. So I think generally, if you are a fashion brand, you should be very, very you should focus on the environmental, social, and ethical aspects of your supply chain a lot. First of all, consumers are demanding it. More and more Gen Zs and the new generation, as they are coming, they are making choices of product based on how transparently the brand talks about the how, where, and what part of the product part of it there. And this has got a different impact now. You see a lot of lawmakers and the regulations are coming. So one was earlier it was the consumers were demanding, but now you have got a huge compliance risk if you're not complying to many of these ESG parameters there, and you can go bankrupt if you do not have that is shape. So with these two drivers, the brands are under tremendous amount of pressure to first unravel their supply chain. So at a product level, they want to know who the tier 1 supplier is, which is the main direct supplier, and who the tier 2 supplier is. For example, for a particular jacket, where is the fabric coming from, where is the lining coming from, where the zipper is coming from, where the buttons are coming from, where is the padding coming from, etc., etc. Then tier 3 comes the next level, then tier 4, tier 5. But at a brand level, I think mostly they are struggling to even collect the data up till tier 2 or tier 3 there. So that is the first thing that the platform does. Second thing is, once you know who the suppliers are, you typically collect various we call it scope levels or scope level data or facility level data, effectively that the facility is not causing chemical pollution, there is no child labor involved, there is ethical treatment of the animals going on, etc., etc. So you have got around more than 100 plus parameters that you need to collect data on, which means that there can be 100 different sources, right, from different NGOs doing the activity, or standards bodies or certification bodies, etc., doing these kind of activities there. The third thing that we ensure is material integrity, because a particular product, where it is produced is important, but also you want to know that whether it is made out of organic cotton or recycled polyester, effectively more sustainable materials there. And there's a lot of mistrust going in that part of the activity, because people say that people use conventional cotton and they claim it to be organic cotton. So then how do you ensure that the true cost is reflected on the activities on the ground there? So we help these fashion brands to maintain a very technical word called chain of custody at a product level. In simple terms, it is the credit and debit system implemented at up till tier 2, tier 3, where the material inflow is recorded, material processing is recorded, and material outflow is recorded in a simple accounting way there. So these are the three fundamental things we do. We help them map their supply chain, monitor the facilities and factories, and then ensure material integrity. And all this is done using a traceability or a digital platform. We work with a lot of ecosystem players. We single-handedly cannot solve the problem. So we typically are an open platform where we integrate with other different data sources like Hig Index, like OAR, and similar tools. We also at a enterprise level integrate into a ERP, into a PLM. So we typically are sort of the repository of this information in a enterprise landscape.
Very interesting. So I have what might be a dumb question, but they say there's no dumb questions. Who collects all the data? It's a tremendous amount of data. And so is a lot of that integrated from other partners, kind of like you just mentioned, or do you all actually go out and collect data?
We collect a lot of data. So for example, for some of the companies, so we are almost recording 1 million transactions a month. Wow. Which is like almost 3 million data points a month, kind of a thing, in the platform there, apart from the data that is sourced from third party sources also there. What are these data points, right? These data points will typically, some supplier will upload a certificate. For example, if they have got a renewable energy certificate and they say that they want to claim that I am a carbon neutral or a carbon positive or climate positive kind of a facility, they will upload that facility, that data, and we will then check it, and that data will be available to all the brands who are using them as a supplier, right? Such kind of information. This point that I mentioned, material inflow, material processing, material outflow, it is done at a batch level. So you will typically have a batch of cotton that comes in, then you convert that into, suppose, fabric and all. So you will typically record each of these transactions. So there's a lot of data which flows in. What you asked about data collection is the holy grail. I think digital platform is one part of the challenge which we are solving them, but I think you have to run a lot of incentivization. You have to build the trust with your suppliers to share this data, and that is the hardest part, I would say. Why? It is because this industry has believed in commoditizing everything. So effectively, you do not want to know where the cotton comes in till the time it is cotton, right? Whereas what we are doing with our platform is we are giving each platform each product their uniqueness. So we are just anti-commoditization, right? You want to know which farm the cotton has come from. What are the 15 steps has happened before your t-shirt, right? So that is what we are preserving the identity of that whole material. So which means that first the brands have to earn back the trust of the suppliers, because as of now it has been a one-way street. Brands have been sitting on a high pedestal dictating terms to the supplier. Now you want it to be a dialogue. The supplier should have the capability of saying, hey, you know what, for me to get this kind of a cotton or this kind of a polyester, I need spend so much money. So this is the true cost of production. So it is a two-way street. So this needs a mindset change from brand side, from the supplier side, also from the people who are in the lower tier of the suppliers, also the people who are auditing it and all that. So that is the hard part. So what we do and what we have done is we were facing a lot of this issue that while the platform was there, brands were struggling in building this incentivization of the suppliers program. So we have got some best practices. We have brought out a playbook called the Traceability Playbook, which I think is open source. People can just go to our website and download it there. And we have co-authored it with Fashion Revolution and Fashion for Good, so that they have the industry voices also covered. And with this, they get certain best practices. But again, when they start any fashion brand, when they start working with us, my team typically helps them to run a complete supply incentivization program, at least for the first few months there.
Very interesting. It's so, at BioStar, we're big fans of organic. We make organic fertilizer, and everything has become organic. And I have to say, I've definitely thought to myself, how do I know that this is really organic cotton? How do I know, right? So I think what you're doing and the traceability you talk about is so important to ultimately protecting that consumer and kind of keeping people honest. But talk a little bit about specifically in the retail and in the fashion industry, why this is really so important. I think obviously, one of the things that comes to mind is single-use fashion items, right? My wife, she uses Rent the Runway all the time because she doesn't want to spend $700 on a dress that, society says she should only wear once, although I think that maybe that trend is changing a little bit. But talk about why this is so important, particularly in these industries, and certainly any stats or statistics you have, about waste in the fashion industry, I think is super interesting.
So I think this problem, first of all, exists in all industries, right? I think fashion has been pulled up because I think it has been seen as one of the greatest polluters, which in a way it is right because of the scale of this industry, right? It is it is almost, if you take the whole globe, $3 trillion industry, right? And the carbon footprint is high, and we have seen that in the last decade, as you said, the number of times you use the item has gone significantly low. From high double digits, it has come down to low single digit there. So it is alarming to see. And I think after the multi-fiber agreement went away and people have used or misused the production facilities back in developing countries to overproduce, and in fact the whole economics works based on overproduction, trying to oversell and overconsume, right? And it is a very linear model. It was okay when you initially started doing it because you wanted to democratize fashion, but now I think when it is overconsumption, and this overconsumption is leading for you to let go of scarce resources, and virgin materials are becoming rare. I think it is a time for us to correct these things there. Broadly, I think I don't need to, maybe there are much better sources of data, but I think it has got a significant amount of carbon footprint. It has a significant amount of impact on water intensity. It has got a very high impact on local populations across the globe for their livelihood, the way the people are treated, whether they are paid fair wages or minimum wages or living wages, all that debate. If you talk about any environmental, social, or ethical issue, you will see the fashion industry gets drawn in, right? And there are good actors, there are bad actors, there are very bad actors also. There we have to understand. And the idea, I think, is there that we try to bring a change that people start assuming that we have to produce in a certain minimum requirement way, and pay the true cost of production, right? And then, of course, you make a profit on top of it is perfectly fine. And I think there's a myth that sustainable garments tend to be paid a premium. No, I think the true cost of production of any garment is at a certain level. Now, some people try to cut corners and bring the true cost lower. It is not right? So I think that is what the whole journey is, from a fashion which is largely linear, a fashion that just a fashion industry which largely thinks about overproduction and overconsumption. We have to make a significant change towards circular business models. We have to make the supply chains much more responsible and agree to pay the true cost of production there. So, which is, I think, absolutely right thing that your wife does that. If I'm just going to wear it once or twice, why do I need to buy it? I can always rent it. And it also feels good. You keep your footprint lower. And it also is, I think, it's a nice way of using your finances that way.
Awesome. So you mentioned something I want to circle back to later about this is an important issue for any industry, but we're going to keep picking on fashion for a little bit here. Talk about one of the things I thought was so interesting as I prepared for this episode and spoke with you was how many vendors or components can make up one single item, a zip-up jacket or whatever it may be. You sort of alluded to it earlier, but talk about that. How many vendors, are in my Lululemon jacket or whatever it may be, because I thought that was really fast. The number shocked me.
So I will put the question the other way around. I will just say, so if I just take the bill of materials, how many line items will there be in your Lululemon jacket, you think?
Yep. Well, and we don't have to pick on Lululemon specifically.
Okay. Not Lululemon or any winter jacket if I pick it up. Typically, and I think this was something that was shocking to me also, because I come from in my past, I used to develop software solutions for industrial products like generators, motors, and aerospace engines. I used to think that is real work of complex engineering. But when I came to the fashion industry, I thought, how difficult will it be? We have to understand a winter jacket has got at least 50 bill of material items. This consists of a button, a special zipper, auxiliary zipper, different paddings, different kind of lining, different kind of fabric, and all that kind of thing.
Wow.
And think about this 50 plus kind of a bill of material items going tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, tier 4, right? That is one aspect of it. And then the other complexity is the volume, right? An aerospace engine is produced in thousands or hundreds, actually, not even thousands, hundreds. Whereas a jacket is produced in millions, right? So if you multiply just this, you're talking about tremendous amount of complexity, and hence I think I believe supply chain in fashion industry is the most neglected part of the retail industry there. A fashion industry or most of the consumer product good industry, they are living in a world in which they want to do D2C. They want to do the best innovation that is possible for the consumer side of it. They want to bring augmented reality, virtual reality, NFTs, everything. But fundamental stories, they do not know their supply chain, where it is being produced, how it is being produced. And this is the bright and the dark side of the fashion industry, or any industry for that matter, right? There. So the complexity is immense when you are dealing with a simple product like a jacket, also winter jacket also, or even if you take a t-shirt also, I think it goes through a lot of checks and balances, because you still have to ensure that if it is organic cotton or certain blend that you are using, it is the right claim you are making. For example, I will give you maybe one more example. If you want to, at a product level, if you want to claim that this product has 30% organic cotton, right? Which means that you need to have this accounting system that I was talking about up till tier 3 or tier 4 at least. Most of the brands don't have that, right? As of now, the 30% claim is broadly made. Okay, in a year, I procured so much amount of t-shirts and so much amount of cotton, so I just can claim that 30% of my total production is organic, and then I just extrapolate that and say that this particular product has 30% organic cotton. It is not right, because you're not sure. Maybe this product has got 100% of organic cotton, or it can have 0% of organic cotton, right? So I think there's a lot of, and I think the supply chain part of it has not been given the right focus, which means that many of these terms are loosely used without understanding what it means, what is going on in a consumer's mind when they're buying it. And you can very well see that the amount of crackdowns which are happening on greenwashing claims is a result of that, because consumers are saying, come on, I bought this t-shirt or this jacket assuming this, and this is not true. This is cheating them.
I'm glad you mentioned the greenwashing. It's something we talk about on this show in a lot of different ways, but it's something I'm glad you mentioned the fashion industry sort of getting caught up and accused of greenwashing. Talk about why you think that is, and how consumers can consumers avoid or spot greenwashed products?
How they can spot is I think we have to use a lot of gut and intuition there still, I would say. I'm really looking forward to certain regulations like product environmental footprint in Europe to give us at least some indication about it. But I think as of now, it is largely driven by us or any consumer being very, very aware of it. And I think demanding the brands to share the complete story of this product. And if you do not know the story, I think you should sort of not go and buy from that particular brand. It is as simple as that there. We all know how to sense what is right data, what is not so right data. And I think that comes back to the common sense there. Yes, greenwashing is a problem, because I think it is a two-speed engine that was formed because when the fashion brands got to see that sustainable products move faster, the return the velocity of sales increases significantly and all that. So why don't I just start making certain claims? And if you typically see around 3 or 4 years back, most of the marketing people. Most of the people in the sustainability team were actually marketing and communication people. Very fewer production people. And I think that was largely driven, okay, what are the things I can claim? So in one tag, you will say recycled packaging used, and recycled will be big and packaging will be small, and all such kind of things. And these are smart marketing moves, right? You have to give in, and that started happening because they did not want to fundamentally go and look at the supply side of it or the production side of it. But once now the crackdown has happened, most of the consumers are going and asking questions. From a brand I was talking to around a month back, they mentioned that to their headquarters, they're getting on an average 10,000 plus requests about data about product. And this used to be less than 500 2 years back, right?
So people are taking the time to ask.
Exactly. One is people, and retailers are asking. So because a retailer now, think about it, a retail shop is now known by the percentage of sustainable products they carry, right? Now they are coming with their own criteria based on which they will call a particular product to be sustainable, right? Of course, there's a lot of confusion on that, and hence I am saying the consumer needs to be very aware and alert, right? That is, nobody can take that away. You may be supported by certain labels, certain accreditations, but you should not just take it as the face value. You need to be very curious and inquisitive about what is going behind this. And the best thing is, ask the brand, can you please tell me which are the facilities it has been produced? Can you please tell me which are the materials have been used? How are you ensuring that the material is what you are claiming? What is the evidence collection process that you follow? There, and things will start changing, and there you will see the emergence of the truly sustainable brands coming up. And yes, it is a different way of buying, and I think it is happening because now if you see, most of the new generation or the next generation people, they typically go online, they typically check the credential of a particular product, the brand, the aware consumers, and then they go and then only they order or buy it. Right.
Yeah.
It is gone are the days when you just you want to buy, you get dressed for a party, you walk into a store and then you buy that. You nowadays put a lot more thought behind it.
Yeah, it's interesting. You know, this younger generation, they've always had so much information at their fingertips, and so
Exactly.
they're not afraid to just look it up. You know, what the older generations might think of as sort of a simple transaction. I like the shirt. It fits me right. I'm going to buy it. Now it's, well, let's look at the sustainability report, right? I mean, it's just amazing that people really are taking the time to make those educated decisions. We talk about that in one of our episodes, one of our very first episodes with Jeff Fromm, who's a friend and really just a genius marketing guy, works for Barclay. And we talk about the discerning consumer. And that's certainly a trend that I think we've all seen growing in the past several years or maybe even decade. And you mentioned that it's the consumer driving it. But then you also mentioned earlier, there's now policy that's really driving that. So talk a little bit about some of the global sustainability standards and regulations that have come about or are coming about and their impact, on this industry and others.
Yeah. I think it was, I think many of these laws were earlier existing. It is just that I think suddenly they have been given a lot more executive powers to execute on these kind of things there. So for example, in the US, you have the CBP, which is the forced labor law that has typically shook the people because this law was existing earlier. It was just that now the custom officials are putting a crackdown on any garment. You have to prove that it does not have cotton coming from Xinjiang province, right? Then you have got California transparency law, which has been existing. People have just started using that and implementing it. The talk of the New York fabric or fashion law. Then you have got the federal law on fabric and all that kind of thing has started coming in. Fundamentally, they're all dealing with various aspects of forced labor or social compliance or environmental compliance. And now with this new bill or act, I don't know, I think which came up because on supporting climate positive initiatives in the US. I think that is happening in in Europe. I think it started around 3-4 years back, and I think they're a step or two ahead of US. You have got various transparency law. You have the German transparency law. You have the French due diligence law. You have got the UK forced labor law, etc., which has come in and putting a lot of pressure. So think about it. If you are a global fashion brand, right? You have a same product, but you are now trying to sell it in the US, in Europe, in 15 different countries, and in Asia. You have to comply to so many different policies and laws, and these are compliance issues, right? As I mentioned earlier, I think sustainability was a good to have. People will say, "Oh, fine, it feels good on my skin because I'm." So if you are a value-driven buyer, you will always say, "Oh, this fashion brand doesn't fit into my values. I will not buy." But now, the regulations are pushing you that you have to follow this minimum standard when it comes to environmental, social, and ethical aspects there. My last count, which was what we send a newsletter about various laws that are impacting the fashion industry. In the last count, we had almost 50 plus different laws and directives that they have to be careful about there.
Wow.
And now what we have started doing is that we are saying that if your particular product has got X number of materials, you need to collect so many different evidences. So that actually goes in hundreds then there. So there's a lot of laws that are coming in, and depending upon the countries that you source, the countries that you sell, and the countries that you produce your material out of there.
Very interesting. It sounds like probably a lot of work for these brands who haven't been doing this and now are starting to track all these different types of things. Good work, but I'm sure, a lot of work, and obviously your platform helps sort of bridge the gap there and make life easier, right? So very, very interesting. But last, kind of on retail fashion, you talk about the second life of a retail fashion product. Seems to be trending right now. Talk about a little bit, expand on that and why it's important.
It's very important. I think you have to understand. Let's go back to how your car, right? Once you have a car, you typically, suppose you have used the car for 2 or 3 years, then you typically sell to a second-hand store. Second-hand goes to third-hand, fourth-hand. Typically, it's okay for a good quality car to run maybe around 300,000 kilometers also, right? Whereas when it comes to fashion product, a well-made fashion product typically can last at least up till 10 years, right? And of course, the problem is we as human beings, we get bored out of the particular fashion, then product, and then either the product is occupying my wardrobe, or the product, we just take it and just throw it and it goes into the landfill. So in both cases, the usable part of that product is very limited, maybe less than 5%. So we have to open up the new areas in which this product can have a better usage and for the full life there. And that is where I think re-commercing, reusing, recycling is the way for us. And if we just do the recycling in the proper way, we don't downcycle it. For example, not take a good quality jacket, cut it into pieces and make it a bedding out of it, right? Rather, if you take that and you are able to convert that into, with the information that you have, you can just go back and put it in the right place where they will extract maybe 70% of the polyester it has. And then you can again, so this further reduces your pressure on virgin materials, right? So we have to start thinking circular there. The challenge with circularity as of now is that it is seen as as a very very niche thing. It has to become a mainstream thing. So anything to do with product, we should typically say that it at least has a life of what it has been designed for, whether it is 8 years or 10 years, and it is having much more usage per product there.
Very interesting. Thank you for that. And I am in the baby phase of my life, Shameek, so I'm very grateful if any of my cousins who have donated us baby clothes are listening today. Thank you, because boy, those little pieces of fabric that they fit in for 2 months that are $60, that it adds up. So
Yeah.
You mentioned earlier, it's not just the retail fashion industry. I think that's where a lot of your focus is, though. Are there other industries that you plan to sort of expand into?
Yeah. So I think so. As a platform, our platform can go into any industry, and I think typically, if you look at traceability, of course, the adjacent industries is other consumer product good industry like furniture, like cosmetics, like interiors, like carpets, etc., etc. We can easily expand into it. It is largely soft goods oriented or kind of a thing there. While we do this, we have got also other industries such as battery. Like battery is big now because given the sudden surge in the increase in the demand for certain minerals and materials, I think it is facing a lot of issues on this nature, and it now has got exposure to certain conflict zones. So I think there is a problem similar to that. You have got steel now because there's a high demand for green steel. So how do you typically ensure that whatever goes in your industrial product is a green steel or not? Diamonds. So we have known through the movies that there is a clear case of a lot of blood diamonds and all that. So if you typically say all products which has got certain amount of gaseous substances, and this can be coffee, cocoa, diamond, cobalt, nickel, whatever it is, I think is a good case for product traceability and supply chain transparency there.
Very interesting. Are there any important partners or customers that you want to give a shout out to? Who have you sort of been able to work with or leverage that have helped you grow?
Yes, I always say that we are a co-creation of the sustainability leaders in the fashion industry, because we knew that there's a need for data in the industry, but what data, how that data can be collected and all. So initial years we were very well supported by the sustainable brands like Houdini, Philippa K, Iceberg initial years, and then when we started getting scale, I think we have been very well supported by companies such as Adidas and Decathlon, and now of course we are working with many other larger brands in this space there.
Awesome. Well, I really hope you'll stay in touch. I'm fascinated by what you do and your platform, and really, really appreciate you taking the time to come on the show. As we wrap up here, let our listeners and viewers know, how can they find you online and get in touch if they're interested, or stay tuned with what's going on?
Sure. I think I'm there on LinkedIn, Shameek Ghosh, or they can drop me an email also at shameek.ghosh@trusttrace.com. I will send it across, then you can put it in your notes in the podcast.
Perfect.
And I'm there on the LinkedIn also.
Perfect. Yeah, we'll include both the LinkedIn and your email in the show notes. So if anybody wants to get in touch with Shameek or learn more, you can do that easily. This has been another episode of RENEWables. Shameek, thank you again for coming on. Fantastic and great work you're doing. I'm your host, David Smart, the Senior Vice President of Sales at BioStar RENEWables. Thank you so much. Shout out to all of our listeners and viewers who continue to help us grow the podcast. Please click the follow or like button if you haven't already, so you don't miss an episode. And Shameek, like I said, don't be a stranger. Hope we can stay in touch. And thanks again for coming on the show.
Pleasure. Thanks a lot, David.
Excellent. Well, this has been another episode. Thanks, everyone.
Hello, and thank you for listening to Renewables, a podcast by BioStar, which aims to explore the current and future energy landscape in America.